This is the Mars M2 from Gamdias. Gamdias. In the email where they asked me to review this case, they did not specify how to pronounce their company name, so I'm gonna do it how I want to. Gamdias. Gamcam. And along with this case, Gamdias sent me this cooler. This is the Boreas M1. Today's video is pretty simple. Gamdias sent me both these products to review and use in a build, and quite frankly, these are two pretty budget-friendly products. With the Mars M2 coming in at about $60 and the Boreas coming in about $38 is what I saw on Newegg right now, these are not the most expensive things I've ever seen. So if they are actually any good, they both could be a very awesome budget option for your next build. But if they're good is what I seek to find out in today's video. So let's open this thing up and see what we've got going on. Come on. That's not too heavy. Shing! That is probably just a straight reflection. Alright, this is probably just a straight up reflection for you guys. So let's get this thing. Let's move the cooler for now. We'll get to that later. And let's check out this case. So we've got a tempered glass side panel, dust filter on the top with mounting for what appears to be a 240mm radiator. Now, in today's video, we are not going to be testing a 240 because they sent me this. I'm going to use it in today's build. And besides that, we've got... Now, this is a micro ATX case, if you couldn't tell already by the size of the box and, well, the size of the case. It's pretty standard size compared to other micro ATX little boxes. Now, for our I/O, we have a USB-C front panel as well as two USB-As, which is more than you get on some like the high-end cases nowadays, which is pretty great. USB-C has become pretty standard, but it's nice to see it on a case even within this budget range. You also have front panel audio as two separate connectors and a hard drive and reset LEDs. All right, let's peel this and open it up. That's a good peel. Oh, we get like a handle. Whoa. My God, there's another peel. I like this case. Okay, I'm just gonna say this right now. This is kind of amazing. Oh, it's magnetic, and then you just pull it. It opens like this. And to get the glass off, my assumption is we just, yep, very easy double pull system. Just like so. That is amazing. I love the hinge design for a glass panel like this, and taking it off is super easy. Man, oh God, I fucked my back. Ah! Oh, I just noticed, I almost forgot, there's actually a hardware LED switch because there's a pretty decent amount of RGB on this case, including the included 120mm RGB fan. I would have liked to see more fans included in the front of the case, as we can see there are none, especially if I'm going to be going for a budget build with something like the Boreas M1 air cooler. I'm going to definitely want some front panel fans depending on what CPU I go with. Either way, especially since the airflow is, well, it's definitely going to be cut off in the front. We'll do a full airflow test after we take an initial look at the cooler and finish up our looking at our case. But the only airflow comes in from right here in the front. Especially since a lot of budget builds will use used CPUs from 20 years ago. From 5-10 years ago that output way more heat at way less efficiency. So we'll see how that works. But besides that, that's our case. Let's take a quick look at the Boreas M1 cooler before we do a quick build with it and see how the build process is, and then also test out our thermals and see how it looks. I will make a separate video of the entire build and how that works. Gamdias also sent the Boreas M1. This is their most expensive and highest end air cooler that they sell. So hopefully it's pretty good. It's RGB, as you can see, and has a cool shroud thing going and is, well, pretty straightforward to open up. Let's see. So here we have our fully assembled cooler. It comes with this weird plastic shroud. I see no reason to disassemble that. And a 120mm fan. I believe that is a 120. And then we have, of course, mounting hardware for everything that we will need. Now, one last thing I want to look at is what's going on in the back of this case. So it only takes 2 actual thumb screws, not like those crappy torqued to infinity screws that some other cases use, to open up our back panel. And here we've got, oh, what looks like oh, it's a fan controller. Is it RGB? What the heck? Oh, that's weird. What is this for? What the heck? Okay, I see some proprietary going on here, if that's even a word. Wow. So, in our group of cables here, we have an addressable RGB header to this weird, almost graphics card fan looking connector. Okay, guys, I'll have to see in the full build, but I don't know where this connector goes. I'm guessing maybe it goes to this hub in some way. It does fit where this says fan speed on top, but it goes to RGB, so I don't know if that's a translation error or something. See? But whatever. The fan comes out as one cable that goes directly to this header. I'm not going to pull that out because I don't want to rip it off the little PCB here, but it is not a standard fan, nor is it a standard RGB header, so who knows. And then we have one more connection going to the front of the case for obviously our front panel RGB. Alright guys, besides that, let's go ahead and do a build and see how this case is both building in and how it performs airflow wise, and see if you should be buying it for your next budget build. Fair warning, I'm pretty sure 90% of the RGB is not going to connect because I have no freaking clue how to do it. There's no RGB connectors on the board, which is fine because any case with RGB should have, like this one, an LED switch. Makes sense. Except for the fact that it's a proprietary connector in the back and there's no way to connect this fan to that connector to my knowledge, so not really sure what to do there, but apparently the RGB is working despite there being no fan, despite it not being connected, so that's good, at least. Okay, I have to be honest, this is kind of a freaking sick looking system. First of all, I did see this on the product page, but I have to point out the RGB around the buttons and connectors here on the front, just really nice. Just a really nice touch that I very much appreciate in terms of looks. The back RGB fan is definitely a fully RGB fan, including the ring around it. And of course, the fan on the cooler is very cool as well. Pun intended. All around, this is just kind of a sick looking build so far. And hopefully it boots. And of course, the RGB around the power button, just, again, a nice little touch. And with that, I have completed the build in this case. Now, I'm going to take off this, again, amazing hinged side panel, because it's a reflective mess on camera, as well with glass, and it does that. So getting right into the performance metrics. The case is pretty restrictive, but not unusable. First of all, our CPU actually stayed very cool, thanks in part to the actually pretty amazing Boreas M1 cooler. I don't know which one it is, so. Our CPU overclocked to its maximum overclock of 4.2 gigahertz. For reference, this is a Xeon E5-1650 V2 overclockable and efficient CPU to just kind of give this case and CPU cooler a big challenge. This CPU has a 130 watt TDP, which we handily hit within most of our games and stress test benchmarks, and our CPU again hit a maximum of 66 degrees Celsius. For reference, this is actually a very hot room, so that's very impressive for an air cooler on a CPU like this. Our graphics card, however, got pretty hot. I was planning on using a liquid-cooled R9 295X2, which is a very hot liquid-cooled GPU with actually 2 GPUs on one chip, and requires a lot of airflow, but our build seemed to just not work with any AMD cards, so I had to go with my second choice, an inferno of a card, the GTX 1080 Ti Poseidon. This is a hybrid cooled card. Obviously, we're not using the liquid cooling function on the card, so it's just handled by 2 pretty wimpy fans. The card easily shoots up to 84 plus degrees during any sort of stress testing, but that is not unexpected at all. That happens in almost all cases. Now, compared to open air, our stress testing result was about 5 degrees average over the average of our open air test bench in the Mars M1. Quite frankly, if you ask me, there's really not much difference. With a more efficient GPU or one with better cooling, I can definitely recommend a case like this, but I would highly recommend having some intake fans. This case does not come with, nor does it really have much intake options, which is definitely a negative in my opinion, but I believe adding intake fans to the front of the case would definitely help our GPU temperatures a lot. And if you couldn't tell already, I'm actually a big fan of the cooler as well. It clearly can handle a CPU of this magnitude that even some of my smaller liquid coolers had trouble taming. So I'm definitely happy with the results today. Not to mention the RGB looks very cool. One thing I want to note though, during the build process, I completely could not figure out what the hell was going on with the RGB of this case. I mean, seriously, they have a proprietary connector for this fan, but the same fan on the cooler that they also sent uses a normal addressable RGB header and a fan header. This one goes to the back for both its RGB and fan control, so I have no idea what's going on there. Thankfully, although this motherboard has no RGB headers, I was able to connect the fan does actually have a default RGB mode on the cooler that is activated when you connect it to a fan header. The button for LED does work, obviously not on this cooler, but it does work for the rest of the case. It's pretty nice. There's a lot of different modes, but a lot of them are just kind of a breathing effect, and I'm not a super big fan of that, but in the end, it definitely works. So that's my review of the Mars M2 and Boreas M1. The cooler, I definitely recommend if you're looking for a cooler that looks, well, like this. In the end, it really comes down to looks because the performance is great, so if you like the look of this cooler, I highly recommend it. Now for the case, it's entirely up to you. My honest opinion is that I genuinely do like the case. I think it's pretty easy to build in. Cable management is relatively simple, and for a micro ATX case, it is pretty roomy without being too bulky. It looks nice, and I definitely love the hinged tempered glass design because that's just freaking awesome and an amazing feature to have on a case like this, and is much simpler than some other integrations. That's the point. Hope you guys kind of enjoyed this review. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to Gamdias for sending me these products. Links in the description below if you want to check any of them out. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.